Good morning, dear students. Today I, Harshita Mishra, will teach you the chapter number 2 of NCERT Biology, class 11th, and the chapter number 2 is biological classification. In this biological classification, you will come to know about the diversity of the animals existing on your earth, diversity of the organism existing on the earth, we can say more correctly, and how those organisms, how these diversity has been classified. Biological diversities has been classified, but with the basis of classification on which they have been classified. This was the chapter which will deal with the various ways and various types of the classification. So we'll see the next very slide. So look at the history of the classification, from where the earliest classification came and who gave this earliest classification. This earlier classification was done by Aristotle, and he just simply used some morphological characters to classify the plants, and he just classified them into trees. Those were longer into trees, and those were not so long and so short, they were classified as to shrubs, and those were very small, they were classified as the herbs. And this was the only basis on the morphology of the plants. He classified the plants into trees, shrubs and herbs, and the other, he divided animals into another two groups on the basis of the presence of the what, red blood cells, and the absence of the red blood cells. So this was the only basis done by the Aristotle in classifying the plants and animals, and this is the history of the classification. If somebody asks you about the who gave the earlier system of the classification, yeah, earliest classification were done by, so your answer will be Aristotle. See, there comes the need for the classification. Why there is a need to classify the organism? What is the need to classify the organism? We can study as such also. And so, what is the need for the classification? See, the need for the classification is because there are there are so many diversity present. The diversity of bacteria, biological diversity is very much enormous. So in among that biological diversity, and from that enormous biological diversity, suppose you have to study about a single individual organism, suppose you have to study about some kind of bacteria. Okay, so in that biological diversity, if bacteria, viruses, and fungi, algae, pteridogymno, and some everything, means animals and all will be mingled up, means they are all present in a one place. So how would you study if you have not classified them? Ki these animals have, these are classified as animals, these are grouped as bacteria, and these are grouped as algae and fungi. So if you have to study a single study about bacteria, suppose that bacteria, and among that bacteria have to study about a single bacteria, so there must be a classification of those organisms into bacteria, into algae, into fungi, into the what animals. Okay, so if they are classified accordingly, if they are classified properly, so it will be very much helpful for us to study the biological diversity very easily among from that enormous biological diversity. So this is all about, I have written here in the need for the classification. See, for our life appeared on the earth on 3.5 billion years ago, and there are many types of the organisms till then evolved. Till date, many of the organisms have been extinct, and this while some have developed some extra characters to present, flora and fauna of the world has came also, and this extinction and diversification is a continuous phenomena, and it will go on till the life will exist on the earth. See, the overall increase in the biological diversity has been recorded 10 million to 13 million species on the earth. So if you have to study about a single organism or for single phylum or a single kingdom you have to study about, then there is a need for the classification. That is, this is the only need for the classification. These all words, I guess you have been familiar with these words in the chapter number 1 if you have gone through the videos. So here also this is classification is grouping that is based on some similarities. So grouping is based on some similarities, means they have been classified into plants, and they have been classified into bacteria, and they have been classified as animals. So on the basis of their similarities, they have been classified into various groups. This is known as classification. Now comes here taxonomy. Taxonomy is is also a branch of the biology which is deals with the classifying, grouping, and the naming of the organism. See, there was to be a proper address of that organism. So that proper addressing of an organism comes under the taxonomy, in which you will classify that organism, then group into that very much phylum or division, kingdom, whatever it is, and then you will provide the name to that organism. So this comes under the branch of the biology which is known as taxonomy. See, this is a defined form of why we classify. This is the humans have developed the classification system just in order to make the sense of the abundant biological diversity that exists in the nature. Whatever I have explained you in the need for the classification is very much similar to that. If in this you just have got a defined way of if somebody asks you why you classify the organisms or why we classify organisms, so you can write this answer as such also. See, there are several taxonomic components, means classification, identification, nomenclature and description. These taxonomic components are very much important in providing that organism an address. So first you have to classify the organism, means you have to arrange that organism into some similar characteristic spaces into a group, and that group is considered to as a taxa, or that forms a taxonomic system. Now after grouping them into similar with the similar characters, you will place them into a group, means you will place them into a separate group and some other having a similar characteristics into the other groups. Now after placing them into different groups on the basis of similar characteristics, you have to identify the organisms, mean on the basis of identification you have grouped them into different taxas. Now comes here, after identification of that organism, will come to provide the name to that organism, so that that organism must be known by that scientific name all over the world. So this nomenclature, I must you have I guess you have studied this about in chapter number first. It has been given ICBN, ICJN. So and then that nomenclature has been done to binomial nomenclature, which was given by Carolus Linnaeus in order to provide an organism a scientific names with a specific epithet and generic epithet, and those specific and generic epithets should be so valid that it must be known all over the world, means that organism must be known all over the world with a similar name. So this is called the nomenclature. Like if I talk about mango, okay, if I talk about some animal, dog, so dog and mango, these are the you can say a vernacular name. Okay, these are the vernacular name. It must be known by this name in some states, but not in the other states, but not in the other countries. So it must have been given some name that must be known all over the world with the similar things. Like mango has been given a scientific name or the botanical name as Magnifera indica. In that Magnifera, the very first word of Magnifera indica written separately, Magnifera with the starting M will be capital and the indica the separate word which I will be in the small letters, and it must be underlined if written manually, and if written on the if you had typed words, so it might be in italics. This is the rules of the nomenclature. Go through the chapter number 1 to more about the nomenclature. So Magnifera indica is the name that is known all over the world of the mango. Okay, so there will be no confusion with the mango. Matlab it will be known with the Magnifera indica here also, in my country also, and in the foreign countries also it will be known with the same name. So it is the benefit of nomenclature, scientific name provided the basic nature that will give some information, same information here also and there also. After providing the name, there must be a description, means there must be some characteristics of that organism. That's why that has been placed in a different groups. So this is called description. So taxonomic components के अंदर हम study करते हैं classification, identification, nomenclature and description की. If I show you the classification system, if you classify any organism, you will have to classify that organism up to kingdom. Okay, and domain in life I guess will make you clear later on, but listen here, up to kingdoms, from species to kingdom, and the species is known as the smallest unit of classification. Always remember, it comes in MCQs, it comes in filling the blanks also, it can come into your medical exams also, that what is the smallest unit of classification, that is species is the smallest unit of classification. Okay, this is the hierarchy of the classification, means by knowing the species you can go up to kingdom, or by identifying that species you can go up to the kingdom, or by identifying the kingdom of that organism you can go to know about the name of that species. This is the classification system. This is the hierarchy of the classification system. Always remember, the hierarchy will be from species to the kingdom. In the same way, the six classification system here has been shown. Need for the biological classification, I have earlier told you, nothing to tell in this biological classification. Now comes here the kingdom system. See, for the first time, the kingdom that came into existence was the two kingdom system after Aristotle, and it was given by Carolus Linnaeus, and he proposed these kingdoms, classified these organisms into animal and plantae, which is known as, and from animal kingdom is known as Animalia, and the plant as the plantae. See, the limitations are associated with the two kingdoms. That why this kingdom has not been so famous. So the limitations which were associated is that, see here, this he has identified the here two kingdom system, Plantae and Animalia. In Plantae, he has placed all those fungi, bacteria, everything he has placed in the Plantae, which not should be placed in the Plantae, because there must be some differences on the basis of the chlorophyll content. They may become non-photosynthetic and photosynthetic. So he have placed everything in the kingdom Plantae, and the rest of those belongs to the animal characters has been placed in the animals. So the basis of similarities were not so good, not so very famous. That's why this kingdom has came with some limitations, and later on the system has been declined by the five kingdom system classification. See, have some limitations, and those limitations, it does not differentiate between eukaryotes and prokaryotes, and on the basis of unicellular multicellular organisms, the limitations were associated. On the basis of photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms, I have told you in the plant kingdom, see fungi, which is a non-chlorophyllous organism. So if it is a non-chlorophyllous organism, how it can be placed in the kingdom Plantae? Because kingdom Plantae contains those only organisms which can get their energy by photosynthesis. So fungi has a non-chlorophyllous organism, so how it can undergo photosynthesis? So this is not the good way of placing the fungi into the kingdom Plantae. So that's why the kingdom has faced some limitations and faced some problems, and it has been later on declined. Now comes the five kingdom system of classification. And this kingdom of five system classification was given by R.H. Whittaker, and on this R.H. Whittaker has classified the organism on the basis of thallus organization. What is the thallus organization? Cell structure means unicellular, multicellular, cell wall present, cell wall absent basis, mode of nutrition, autotrophic, saprotrophic, chemosynthetic, and whatever the mode of nutrition it is, has been separately classified on that basis. Also on the phylogenetic relationship basis, means the phylogeny definitions, means key on the evolutionary trend basis, which organism is related to which organism, has been phylogenetic differences के basis पे, this means evolution के basis पे which organism is evolved with which organism. ठीक है, so that organism on basis has been made with the phylogenetic relationship, and on the basis of reproduction also, means ki sexual, asexual reproduction basis, and various modes of asexual reproduction basis is also the main uh, basis of classification. So on that very basis, he has classified five kingdoms. Those were kingdom Monera, in which he placed all those bacteria, in which he placed all the diversities of bacteria. Kingdom Monera. Now comes kingdom Protista, another kingdom. This kingdom Protista contains the diversity of some algae, diatomaceous algae, protozoans, and now comes here the kingdom Fungi. In kingdom Fungi, he has placed all those fungi, non-chlorophyllous organisms, and into kingdom Fungi, which do not contain chlorophyll. So they have been placed in kingdom Fungi separately. Okay, and comes now the Plantae, in which he has placed all those which can undergo photosynthetic reactions. So in this, algae has also been placed, because algae is a chlorophyllous organism. So you can place algae, and algae was known as the Thallophyta. If you divide, we'll come to see the divisions of those plant kingdoms. So we'll come to know the how the plants have been divided into algae, bryo, pterido, gymno, and angiosperms. Okay, and we'll talk about separately in very much detail, but now here I am giving you just a view of the five kingdom classification, so that you can get to know what kingdom I am talking about in your syllabus. Now the last is the kingdom Animalia, in which he has placed all those animals in all those animal diversity into kingdom Animalia, and those kingdom Animalia are further divided into phylums, and those phylums into subphylums and several on so on. So we'll talk about this five kingdoms, about these all five kingdoms in a very detail in the very next part of this video. So thank you.